KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte with the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial. In a public opinion survey commissioned by KBLA Talk 1580 and conducted by Viteris, the black voters surveyed were highly enthusiastic about the March 2024 primary. The race for Los Angeles District Attorney is being hotly contested. Incumbent DA George Gascon's efforts to implement progressive criminal justice reforms have generated pushback from within his own office, the broader law enforcement community, and some in the general public. He was the subject of at least 2 failed attempts to qualify recalls. The concerns about crime are reflected in the polling results of black voters. Nearly 1 in 4 have been victims of violent crime or have someone close to them who has been a victim. 1 in 5 black voters have personally been victims of property crime in the last 2 years. A majority of respondents feel less safe than they did a year or 2 ago, but they reject the notion that criminal justice reform has gone too far. This year, black voters will be looking for candidates who speak to the complexity of the issues as opposed to a one-size-fits-all approach. Nearly half of black voters have an unfavorable view of DA Gascon, but his challengers are largely unknown. Nearly half of the black voters are also undecided, which means there's a clear opportunity for candidates to connect with black voters. Our poll makes 3 things abundantly clear. Black voters matter. Black voters are closely following this race, and the candidates for DA have a lot of work to do. KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to the mobilization and use of the franchise to empower our audience to identify and pursue their interests in advancing equity, inclusive representation, and multiracial solidarity. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. We welcome your feedback.
KBLA Talk 1580. It sure is a season for keeping your head, our heads, to the sky. There's a lot going on that can be discouraging. And I just always have to refer back to the Most High because, otherwise it's just overwhelming. And now is a perfect time to call. We are going to be hearing from some folks who would like to be judges. They'll be joining us this morning. And we are going to hear from Katie Porter. We're going to get some final day of Black History Month things going. Final day of Black History Month, which is a bonus day that happens only every 4 years. So do something good with your day. All that is coming up, some labor history in the spirit of Black History Month. But right now, it's me, you, and the microphone for just a second or two. So if you got something to say or you're processing something, call me now, 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. So I know nobody's surprised that the U.S. Supreme Court has more or less pulled a fast one on us. They are going to be hearing the Trump immunity case the U.S. Extreme Court, as my dad called them, and I think he was prophetic in that. But they are saying that they will take his case. And that's a huge victory for he who shall not be named, the 45th president. Why? Well, it's because, well, first of all, we know it's them, and they're activist extremists for the most part, other than a couple of them, other than the ones that weren't appointed by the guy whose case they'll be hearing, and then a couple of the other conservative holdovers who have a supermajority on the Supreme Court. But the main reason is because of the stalling tactic. They already handed him a victory. They didn't say, oh, we're going to take up this case tomorrow, which they could have done, right? Look how quickly they ruled on Colorado, and that Trump has to stay on that raggedy ballot. Well, that raggedy Trump has to stay on that beautiful ballot. And I don't care. Fine. He wasn't going to win in Colorado anyway. I'm glad they challenged him. But the Supreme Court stepped in like his daddy and fixed that right up for him. What did they do here? They said they'll hear the case in April, right? So that's a big stall, right? They've given him all this time to campaign and not deal with the question of his immunity. And then, if they hear it in April, we don't know how long if they take it up in April, we don't know how long that is going to go, because they're talking about, April, late April. That means more than likely we won't get a decision from the court until late June. That means the case wouldn't go to trial until if they rule in his favor, that case tanks, and all the cases tank, right? If he's got immunity, if he is sort of like a god, a god among citizens, or he cannot be criminal. He's above the law, is what they would rule. But even if they don't rule that, because they don't want to be the laughing stock of American history forever and ever, they have given him breathing room. They've given him time to where the case, even if that case, election interference goes to court after the Supreme Court rules against him, that means that he would have time to get elected. If he gets elected, then he couldn't be prosecuted because he would be president. So what they've done is they've basically given him a get out of jail free card, or at least stall going card, which is basically a win for him. This idea about presidents being immune from crimes they committed in office, even after they've left office, it means that they're basically superhuman in the eyes of the justice system. If that's what they rule, they could have just passed. They didn't do that. They could have taken it up right away, like they did the Colorado case, because it's certainly even more urgent than that. They did not do that. And the crazy thing is they dragged their feet to even get there. You're listening to KBLA, Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
I can't believe tax season is here already. Look at all this info I have to enter.
Phil's small accounting firm is growing in numbers.
Why didn't I take that typing class in high school?
A data entry specialist could really help him in a crunch.
I got blisters on my fingers.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Psst. Hey, I have a secret. I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant because more than just my armpits stink.
Oh, can I use it where my bra rubs under my...
Oh, yeah.
And what about down there? My...
Totally. 4 out of 5 gynecologists would recommend it. So I tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness. From my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams too. Go get your Secret Whole Body Deodorant.
Do you support public education? More than 38,000 educators at United Teachers Los Angeles do too. Together, we have fought for a better public education for our students and communities, and having you on our side has been essential in our fight for better public schools. Together, we will continue to work for public schools with green spaces, more mental health staff, smaller class sizes at every grade level, and a higher investment in the Black Student Achievement Plan. We are UTLA, and you make us stronger.
The conversation continues right now with Dominic DePrima on First Things First.
And it's time to meet one of the folks who would like to be a judge on the LA County Superior Court, seat number 124. This is part of our election information station campaign. You can find all of these interviews and conversations on our website, KBLA1580.com. Actually, Molly Bell texted me yesterday to ask when we were going to go over all the judges that we've met so far. We will be doing that Friday in the final hour of the show with attorney Carrie Harper, as it has become somewhat of a tradition around here. So our guest right now was born and raised in the San Fernando Valley. She's a career public servant. She went to Oberlin College. She volunteered at the Jails Project of the ACLU of Southern California, and she's done quite a bit of volunteer work over the course of her career, even before she became a lawyer. She's president of the Pasadena women's rugby team, and she got a public service award right when she graduated from law school. Eventually started working at the Children's Law Center in Los Angeles, representing children. Worked in dependency court, and became transitioned to representing indigent criminal defendants at the LA Public Defender's Office. Kim Repecka, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So the standard question, kind of cheesy but important: why do you want to be a judge?
So I've thought about wanting to be a judge for some years, even before I was eligible. And I think that's really just a function of appearing in front of judges all the time, and you see what impact a good judge can have and what impact a bad judge can have, and how it really can change people's lives in such a big way, and in a way that the public really doesn't see. But why I was motivated to run in this particular election cycle was because there's a sitting judge who has not really been doing her job, and nobody else stepped up to challenge her. So I could easily see that someone that has even more experience than me, I think I have a lot of experience for my 11 plus years, but there are certainly people that have even more experience. But I was the only one that stepped up to challenge this particular judge.
Challenging a sitting judge is more than a notion, right? It's hard enough to become a judge at all. Raising money, people don't know who you are. You can't say if you're a Democrat or a Republican. There's all these restrictions. But when you're going up against someone who's already on the bench, that's tough. So this must be important to you.
It is. Honestly, I sort of regard it as a moral imperative. I read that admonishment. It was so I guess I should give a little background on that. My opponent is a sitting judge, and her name is Emily Spear. And when I was still considering whether or not it made sense for me to run in an election cycle, and was thinking that election cycles seem like a very hard time to run, that I might prefer to try to apply to become a judge instead, rather than this process that requires self-promotion and fundraising and, this entire process. While I was considering that, I saw this admonishment come out in September of last year, and I thought, wow, this doesn't seem like a person who really respects the level of trust that the community has placed in her. And I was kind of looking around and seeing if anyone else was going to challenge her. I had spoken to a few people about trying to encourage someone to challenge her, and then it came to be the last day to file to run, and no one had. And I saw the people that I knew were interested in running for judge had already filed for their respective seats. So I drove myself down to Norwalk on the last day to file.
Wow. And we're not going to spend your time talking about that, but you can Google it and find out about what exactly she was admonished for. You have a lot of endorsements. You've been endorsed by the LA Times, the Metropolitan News, and the LA Progressive, which is interesting to me because LA Progressive, well, it's in the name. The Metropolitan News tends to be pretty conservative in my experience looking at where they go for judges. Pacific Palisades Democratic Club, a bunch of other Democratic clubs, Maxine Waters, Susan Burton, even Greg Akili. You have quite a number of judges, sitting judges, that are endorsing you. Talk to me about that sort of range and interesting, eclectic collection of endorsements that you have.
Yeah. So the judges part of it is interesting because that's sort of part of challenging a sitting judge. One of the challenges is that most judges will not endorse you because they just don't want to be perceived as going against someone who's kind of their colleague. And it doesn't really have anything to do with whether or not they think you're a better candidate or not. I've sort of heard quietly from some judges that they would like me to win, but that publicly endorsing me is just politically sort of disadvantageous. But I have gotten a diverse group of endorsers, and I think that's because ethics, work ethic is not a partisan issue. I've sort of demonstrated through my work that I care about the law, that I care about getting it right, that I don't stop until I get to the right answer. And when I'm that thorough on those issues, people see it and they recognize it. Metropolitan Enterprise News was actually my first endorser. I met with them within a week of filing.
Wow. Okay, so you are obviously coming from the public defender side of the law, and it seems like we've had a kind of a trend of public defenders running for the bench. One notably, La Defensa has been, organizing around that, but others as well. Is there, for people that are concerned about law and order, who think, well, public defenders are just going to let everybody out, they're going to be soft on crime, what would you say to those folks?
So I would say that it's not really about being soft on crime, it's about being smart on crime. And what we've seen is that the approaches of making jail and prison the default, making that the mandatory minimum, making that something that people have to sort of earn their way out of, hasn't really been working. What we know is that it sets people back, even if they don't actually spend a long time in prison. Just being locked up at all can cause people to lose their jobs. If they're a single parent, it can cause them to lose their families. It can cause them to lose their housing. And all that lack of stability doesn't put them in any kind of better place to stay out of whatever behavior it was that motivated this problem in the first place, if they're even guilty. And that's part of the problem, too, is that we're presuming that people are guilty when we're locking them up pre-trial. So as sort of a starting point, I think we need to respect those due process rights and the Constitution and the presumption of innocence. But also, if we're looking to actually fix the crime problem, you have to look at the underlying causes. We also know that when we lock up people for longer and longer periods of time, they become more dangerous. And it's sort of a bizarre thing that both sides cite to, and people that want longer sentences will point at it and say, well, look, this person's already been to prison, and we know that makes them statistically more dangerous. Therefore, let's put them in prison for longer, which really just feels like throwing good money after bad. And if you're on the more reform side, then you look at that and say, okay, well, we've put this person in prison, and we've never addressed the fact that they have schizophrenia. Perhaps we should try to address the fact that they have schizophrenia and see if we can't give them some treatment.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're in an era, I think, where we're looking at, care first and different models of how we want to shape our justice system. But at the same time, we're in a period where people are really scared, seem to be really scared or whipped up into a frenzy about crime and public safety. How do judges impact, or how could you as a judge impact public safety?
So judges are really working on a micro level, right? Like, we're not going to be able to have a large impact individually on those issues, but in individual cases, we can be very impactful. So I see that, for instance, I had a case where a client had a serious substance abuse problem. He was deaf and hard of hearing, and his substance abuse issue was so severe that his mom had gotten a restraining order against him, but he had nowhere else to go. So he'd show up there periodically. Sometimes she'd allow it. Sometimes she'd disallow it because he was acting up. And then she called the police and he'd get arrested. And each time she'd say, I just want him to get clean. I just want him to get treatment. And there didn't seem to be any option for that because they just treated as, well, this is a restraining order violation, so we're going to treat this as domestic violence because it's a restraining order violation with your mom. And so our answer is going to be jail and domestic violence classes. And that's really not what he needed. And when we eventually got him into a substance abuse program, it was in San Diego because that's where they have a substance abuse program for people that are deaf and hard of hearing. He actually did quite well there. He wasn't perfect. People who have substance abuse problems often do relapse, but he did much better over the course of a couple of years while he was under supervision and under diversion than he had for the previous few years when he was continuously getting these cases. And I think that sort of demonstrates that you can have a better model, one that is less expensive to the system and that is kinder to the individuals involved and that brings about more satisfaction and public safety for the victims involved.
Kim, Repecka, when we hear a lot about judicial temperament, and I see on your website your rugby picture is pretty amazing, kind of intense. Obviously, you take your rugby, quite seriously. How does being a woman, how does being a public defender, how does being a rugby enthusiast, how will it shape your judicial temperament?
Well, you need to stay with a cool head in rugby. In fact, that's a blue head is something that my team says a lot on the field when people feel like worked up, like, oh, that other team, like they just threw a punch at you. Like, what are you going to do? Keep a blue head, keep calm. And that's also sort of been the case as a public defender. People accuse you of misconduct because their case isn't going well. It happens more often than you think. And you just sort of have to stay calm and address the thing that's directly in front of you. Okay, yeah, that was upsetting. That was distracting. Let's focus on what's the actual thing that we have to accomplish here. What's the actual thing that has to get done? What's the question in front of me as a public defender or as a jurist? What's the issue that I need to solve as a rugby player? All of that. I respond pretty well to high stress situations, and I don't blow up at people when I am frustrated, is the main point.
Those are, yeah. Well, we learn a lot through sport. And what would you like to accomplish, or what do you think you can bring that's lacking? Or maybe it isn't lacking, but we just need more of it.
Right. I do think that there's some of it. I've been lucky enough to actually be in front of a number of judges that do follow the law on this. But what I see is a lot of resistance to following the laws that we currently have in place. There's the case law of Humphreys that basically says that you don't lock people up just for being poor. Obviously, you can lock people up for actual public safety issues, but you do not lock them up just for being poor. And there's still judges that, without taking pretty much any consideration into this, will just look at the bail schedule and say, okay, we're setting this at $100,000. We're setting this at $200,000 because that's what the schedule calls for based on this person's current charge. And that's not the analysis anymore. The analysis has to be about actual public safety issues. Is there some way that we can keep the public safe, maybe through house arrest, maybe through a supervised release program, maybe through a drug treatment program or mental health program or stay-away orders? There's other things you can do that are not keeping a person in jail if you do have public safety concerns. And the other concern is whether or not they'll fail to appear at court. So you can take that into consideration as well. But you just don't see judges actually doing that analysis in a lot of cases. Instead, they say, this is a serious charge, schedule says this, I'm going to set the bail at schedule. Or in mental health diversion cases, the cases have been pretty clear that the fact that a case is a serious one is not disqualifying. Certain cases are disqualified, serious enough ones that are, for instance, sex registration cases, murder. There are serious cases that are excluded. But for instance, saying that it's a assault with a deadly weapon case, that does not exclude something from consideration for mental health diversion. And the fact that it is that charge does not make someone ineligible for mental health diversion. And yet you will see judges that exclude people from getting mental health treatment. And I had judges say no to mental health treatment for clients that had minimal to no records before and were facing misdemeanor charges. I think the law has actually even changed since I've had those motions denied to make it even more clear that those motions should not have been denied. And what I see is this trend where judges make these denials and then the law will change even further to say, no, that wasn't right. That was unjust.
Got a minute here. What do you want to leave us with? Your why should we vote for Kim Repecka, your website, all that good stuff.
Okay, so my website is kimrepeckaforjudge.com. My Instagram is also kimrepeckaforjudge. So please follow me on there. I do update fairly frequently and have a lot of information there. And the reason why people should vote for me is because I have a track record of hard work, of honesty, of empathy, and of trying to help the community as a whole. The way that my representation of children really informed the way that I moved forward in the rest of my career was that I've been looking for the solutions all along. And when I represented children, it was the solution to how can I keep my client with their parent, who they almost always want to stay with, and do that safely. And then when I represented parents, I had sort of the same question to answer, but from a different perspective. And now when I represent criminal defendants, I'm looking for what is going to make the community safe because I need a judge to agree to it. And because I've had that perspective, I think that I'm already very well equipped to get to the right answer. And instead of having to convince prosecutors and judges to do the right thing with some success, I'd like to have the opportunity to just get on the bench and do the right thing.
Great. Kim Repecka for Judges, forjudge.com. Thank you so much for being with us today. News, traffic, and sports. And then you'll meet another judicial candidate on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Thursday with us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest. New York State Police are investigating after an envelope containing white powder was sent to the office of African-American Attorney General Letitia James. No one was injured after her office received the envelope, which has been sent to a lab to be tested. An envelope with white powder was also sent to the judge who oversaw Donald Trump's civil fraud case. An upcoming launch could light up the Florida sky if the weather cooperates. 3 NASA astronauts and a Russian cosmonaut are due to blast off in a Crew Dragon spacecraft called Endeavour. The capsule will be on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket that's expected to launch just after midnight Friday. The Crew 8 mission calls for them to spend almost 6 months at the International Space Station. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
We've all felt the impact of rising food prices. For families in poverty, they're facing malnutrition and even death. You can feed a family for a month with your $50 donation to Compassion International. Just text the word radio to 97646.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
At age 39, LeBron James is showing us he can still take over a game and dominate. With the Lakers down by 21 to the Clippers last night early in the fourth quarter, LeBron led a comeback that resulted in a highly important 4-point win for the Lakers. LeBron scored 19 of his 34 points in the fourth quarter, 15 of those points coming on 5 3-pointers. Last night's game was the 5th time this season LeBron has scored 30 or more after turning 39 on December 30th. Former USC quarterback Caleb Williams, projected to be the #1 pick in the NFL draft, said he would be excited to play for the Chicago Bears if the Bears select him. Williams shot down rumors that he didn't want to play for the Bears. The Bears have the #1 pick, but they are entertaining trade offers for the pick and their quarterback, Justin Fields. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. Recently, the Washington Post ran a major story which in sum reveals that racial discrimination in jury selection persists in America. Most often, the practice occurs through a legal tactic called peremptory challenge, which allows an attorney to strike a potential juror without having to state a reason. In the 1986 Batson Doctrine, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the use of peremptory challenges to exclude potential jurors solely based on their race violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. By the way, the late great Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall despised peremptory challenges. New data in the Washington Post story underscores that nearly 40 years after the Batson decision, the problem remains widespread. One study in the Deep South found that black jurors are being challenged and dismissed at double and triple the rates of other prospective jurors. Bottom line, it's racist, it's wrong, and it's pervasive, even as research shows that racially diverse juries spend more time deliberating, make fewer errors, and can result in fairer trials. One of the arguments in the Ninth Circuit appeal, brought by former LA City Councilman Mark Ridley Thomas, is about violation of that Batson Doctrine. In its case against MRT, the U.S. Attorney's Office struck black women from the jury pool based on demeanor and employment status, a clear violation of the law. A long list of high-profile black law professors, historians, and justice centers have now filed amicus briefs in support of MRT's position. But the irony of a black elected official who for more than 3 decades represented the best interests of his black constituents, having black women voters struck from his jury pool is repugnant and morally wrong. So much for being judged by a jury of your peers. MRT's legal team argues correctly in its filing that given well-established law and legal principles set forth by the Supreme Court, Ninth Circuit, and state courts and legislatures, the Ninth Circuit should likewise reaffirm and clearly state that applying facially neutral justifications in discriminatory ways to target black women and other protected groups presumptively violates Batson. I couldn't agree more. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Tavis Smiley. We welcome your comments.
It's never been faster or easier to be a voter. Look for your vote by mail ballot in the mail. Fill it in and drop it off at a mailbox on your way to work, on your daily walk, or when dropping the kids off at school. Save time and vote early. Make a plan to vote at plan.lavote.gov. That's plan.lavote.gov. Brought to you by the Los Angeles County Registrar.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
And again, we are your election information station. If you're looking for something, if you don't know which little bubble to fill in, go to KBLA1580.com. All of the conversations are there. The candidates in every office, they're bunched together according to the office. Makes it easy for you to listen to one conversation or all. It's KBLA1580.com. In studio with me now, in case you want to go to YouTube.com, KBLA1580, we have a candidate for judge of the LA County Superior Court. See, I have those brain fades. We used to call it that. It's Superior Court. And what's interesting, she is actually a write-in candidate for seat number 93. She says she's a citizen, U.S. citizen, by birth born in Bethlehem, Palestine, to an Arab Christian father and a Caucasian Christian American mother from Texas, moved to Long Beach at the age of 8 and has called L.A. home for most of her life. She is a public defender, and, well, there's a lot more on this bio, but part of what I would call a wave of public defenders that are getting into the space, looking at careers on the bench. Natasha Khamashta, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, so you volunteer a lot, sounds like, the trash ferry, whatever that is. Sounds like community involvement, right, as a public defender, not just in the courtroom, but beyond. Talk to me about that.
I definitely think of my life as being part of the community, and I live in an amazing community in Los Angeles called Playa del Rey. And we have a lot of active members there that work in the city and the county. And the trash ferries was started by a woman named Sarah Kay. And basically, it's you buy one of the trash picker-uppers and you have designated areas, or you could just go walk around, and while you're going from coffee shop to coffee shop, you can pick up trash.
Okay, so why do you think, and that's great, by the way, we got lots of it to pick up, but why do you think that there is this movement now of public defenders looking to be judges?
Well, I think we're sick and tired of having judges on the bench that don't reflect our clients. Most of our clients are black and brown, while I think the statistic is 49% of judges are white. I believe that's the statistic now. Historically speaking, it used to be a lot more, but they're mostly prosecutors, and they don't connect with the clients like we do. We know we get to know them, we know their history, we know their background, and I think that public defenders want to step up and want to help people in a different and more effective way. And
you've had a great career as a public defender. A write-in is really tough. Why take on that challenge?
A write-in is very difficult, and I didn't really give it two thoughts because I've been the campaign manager since November for 4 of my colleagues. That would be Kim Repecka, that you just heard from, as well as 3 of the Defenders of Justice candidates, which are Erica Wiley, Lachey Henderson, and George Turner. So I've been on the campaign trail with them since November/December, and I have been to dozens and dozens of Democratic club parties, to churches, to union events, you name it, we have been there. And not a single time have I seen Victor Avila there, and it was like out of sight, out of mind. And I opened my ballot on Wednesday, February the 7th, and saw that he was running unopposed. And I've had numerous conversations with my colleagues about his demeanor in court, and I can use words that they've told me, but that he would do anything to win, which is not how a prosecutor is supposed to act. There's acts of dishonesty, clear arrogance, and mansplaining to our public defenders. And so I had that in the back of my mind when I opened my ballot and I saw his name, and I instantly wrote my name down, because to just have somebody run opposed is, I don't think, democratic. I don't understand how within the candidates, like George Turner has 3 opponents, Erica Wiley has 2 opponents. There's other candidates that also have multiple, but then you have one person that's just running unopposed, and every single candidate that's going to be elected can serve anywhere throughout Los Angeles County. One month they could be in Inglewood, another month they could be in Pomona. Whatever the court's needs are, that's where they'll go. So that's why I wrote my name down, and to make a lot of other points. So when the LA County Bar Association evaluates judicial candidates, they don't evaluate somebody that's unopposed, which I think is preposterous.
That's weird.
It's
preposterous.
I didn't know that. It's in their rules, and it's in their handbook. And when you look at the LACBA judicial evaluations, he was not evaluated, and he's not on their list. So there's a multitude of reasons.
So weird. Okay, so there's no evaluation of him. He's running unopposed. You wrote your name in, but it seems like it's more than you just writing your name in, because I've been hearing people talking about you in sort of the elected judge circles. I've seen stuff on social media. So how did you, what do you attribute that momentum to?
Well, I think I'm a very confident person. I'm bold. I take risks. You can't succeed in life without doing that, I think. And
you've been endorsed by a couple judges, too. I see Judge Donald Buttle, Judge Joe Burkhart. That seems kind of surprising for a write-in candidate.
You know what? If I had more time.
Judge Holly Hancock, who
yes.
is another public defender, and more.
Yes. And also Judge Nash, who is a huge, he's like a mentor, idol to me. Donna Groman. Those two judges in particular, when I was working in our juvenile division, I was the deputy in charge, kind of the line supervisor over our collaborative resource attorneys that do educational and entitlement law. So I used to go to a lot of stakeholder meetings where Judge Nash, Judge Groman, Commissioner Pratt, now Judge Pratt, Judge Soto, a lot of judges that would run committees on how best to change policy and how to have best practices. So I saw by example what they can do outside of a courtroom and how they can make impact. And I grew up kind of feeling like I was going to be a judge one day anyway. I didn't realize that this was going to be the path that I was, going to jump in. It's very difficult, and I know the realistics that I may not win, but why not give it a chance right now?
Yeah, you've also been endorsed by at least one Democratic club. Again, the Cañada Castrencha Democratic Club. How unusual is it for a Democratic club to endorse a write-in candidate?
Well, I just wrote myself in on February the 7th. By February the 9th, I realized that this is a real thing, and I was down at the registrar of quarters. And so by the 13th is when, I had collected my signatures and turned them in. And so I've already missed, the mass amounts of endorsements.
Right. In other words, your campaign started this month.
Correct.
Other people have been campaigning since last year? September, August,
or even before then.
Even before that.
Yes.
So you've literally been campaigning just this month.
Yes.
And somehow you've got quite a buzz going.
That's wonderful. Well, I have been working really hard for 24 years almost as a public defender and within my community. And I try to do what I can with my time. And I'm so excited that I have a lot of buzz.
Yeah, we're going to do part 2 of your conversation, right, Miles? Or go through it? Okay, Miles Lowe over there watching the clock, watching the spots. So what is it that you would like to accomplish? What are your goals should you be elected, Natasha Khamashta, as a judge?
I think I have a lot of goals. One of them would be to change this election process of how we elect judges in Los Angeles County. I think that would be one priority of mine. I've already made that clear to the LA County Bar Association. At the end of January, maybe early February, they asked me to be a board of trustee, and I said I would apply, but only if that issue of having people that are unopposed, not evaluated, as well as the underlying bias and sexism in the interview processes that I've heard from many of the candidates, including the district attorney candidates that have. So that's just one agenda item. The other one, obviously, it's on the state level that this would have to be changed to where you have all the candidates on one slate, and then you have, let's say, 8 open seats. The voters get to vote for 8 and not have to compete with each other. These are all public servants. These are DAs and public defenders that are working day in and day out, and they're having to campaign and raise a ton of money. So those are 2 things. For the courts, there is a lot that I would love to do. Judges have a lot of power outside of the courtroom, too. So just like I was saying with Judge Nash and Judge Groman and Judge Pratt, I would love to bring, in Colorado, for instance, they have a program right now that's specifically for youth that have autism, and to have a different set of court parameters. And so I would like to have a specialty court definitely am a holistic type of a person, so I would love to have, and this has been done before, but within the courtroom or right outside the courtroom, you have people from the Department of Mental Health. You have people from LACO or LAUSD. You have actually the agencies that work in our county and cities to be there, so that way, I mean, most of our clients or most of the people caught up in the criminal justice system have severe mental health problems or even minor health problems, but it's about 85%. Then they also have drug addiction or substance abuse problems. Sometimes they're dual diagnosed. And so it's difficult for them to navigate. And so if you bring government or city services to them at the courtroom or outside of the courtroom, and make it to where they're available all the time, not just 1 hour once a week.
Right.
Then you got to take the bus or get your way over there. And I've seen it done. And I would like to have that kind of a space.
Describe yourself as a judge.
Well, I think I would have a good sense of humor to the bench. And I would definitely have a lot of, I would say, diplomatic rules of how people should be treating each other in the courtroom, how they should be talking to each other, and to be respectful. I've won plenty of cases where the prosecutor stormed right outside, didn't even shake my hand, astonished the jury, like, why are they acting in this manner? That's not going to be tolerated. Like, if you're a professional, you lose, well, I apologize, but you didn't prove up your case, and you still have to be civil to the defense, and you have to be respectful to the jury. So that's one small example.
Okay, give us your elevator pitch. 1 minute. Why should we vote for Natasha Khamashta for seat number 93?
Well, I would love your vote because I have experience, excellent experience. I'm diverse, I'm collaborative, and I think outside the box. I'm a problem solver, and I would love your vote.
I think you said, I read somewhere that even if we just write in Natasha, you will get credit for the vote. Even if we can't spell Khamashta, Khamashta, even if we can just write Natasha, they're going to credit you with that vote?
They sure will.
So if you like what you've heard in Natasha Khamashta, seat 93, and you only remember Natasha, but you have to write it in because you can't, there's no box to check.
Correct. You have to write it in. And this is what it looks like. This is one example.
All right. She's holding up, for those in your car, she's holding up a little portion of the ballot where it says write-in candidate, and her name is written in. Tell us how to find you, how to track you, and what we should pay attention to.
Sure, you can. I have a website. It's a modest website. It's Natasha, 4judge.com, and then you can also Google me, and you can. You can read about all the things that I've been doing for 24 years, helping the community.
You're on Instagram too, right?
I am on Instagram as well. And it's Natasha Khamashta on Instagram, same as Facebook.
Yeah, I think I follow you.
Oh, yes.
Natasha Khamashta on Instagram. Okay, you've got maybe about 30 seconds. You want to name one of those things? You said we can read about all the things you've been doing.
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm putting on, I'm co-organizing with my colleague, Sam Cadia, a youth defender and advocate seminar. It's going to be held at Loyola Law School, April 26th and the 27th. And I recently was successful in getting our office a few grants. One of them is from the Office of Juvenile Justice Delinquency and Prevention, which is a federal grant, and also another grant from the Office of Community Youth Restoration. So I'm busy working on getting all of those launched and off the ground.
All right, Natasha Khamashta, it's a pleasure meeting you, and good luck on your campaign.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You are listening to your election information station, KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
Hey Californians, are you ready to make your home ownership dreams come true? The California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program might be for you. First-generation homebuyers can get down payment and closing cost assistance along with a first mortgage to help you unlock the door of your new home. Applications open in April, so talk to an approved lender to see if you're eligible. Find out more at calhfa.ca.gov/dream or call 877-922-5432. A message from the California Housing Finance Agency. THE Health and Wellness Centers, celebrating 50 years since 1974 when it started as THE Clinic for Women. Then, THE Clinic for Women became THE Health and Wellness Centers, providing quality care for everyone. Learn more at tohelpeveryone.org.
Los Angeles County needs a new district attorney.
I'm Jeff Chemerinsky, and I'm running for district attorney. I have served as chief of the Violent and Organized Crime section of the Los Angeles United States Attorney's Office. I've never lost a case. I have experience managing large teams of lawyers and staff, and I've done it in the largest federal judicial district in the nation. I've been endorsed by civil rights attorney Connie Rice, by former LA County Supervisor Yvonne Braithwaite Burke, and by the New Frontier Democratic Club, the oldest and largest African American Democratic club in California. I'm a lifelong Democrat. As your next district attorney, I'll do everything I can to make our community safer and reform our justice system for every community in Los Angeles.
Jeff Chemerinsky, Democrat for district attorney, endorsed by the leaders we trust. Our community can trust Jeff Chemerinsky to stand up for us. Vote by March 5th. Paid for by Jeff Chemerinsky for District Attorney 2024.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
It's never been faster or easier to be a voter. Look for your vote by mail ballot in the mail. Fill it in and drop it off at a mailbox on your way to work, on your daily walk, or when dropping the kids off at school. Save time and vote early. Make a plan to vote at plan.lavote.gov. That's plan.lavote.gov. Brought to you by the Los Angeles County Registrar.
Do you support public education? More than 38,000 educators at United Teachers Los Angeles do too. Together, we have fought for a better public education for our students and communities, and having you on our side has been essential in our fight for better public schools. Together, we will continue to work for public schools with green spaces, more mental health staff, smaller class sizes at every grade level, and a higher investment in the Black Student Achievement Plan. We are UTLA, and you make us stronger.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. Visit jpmorganchase.com/racial equity and get the tools to help reach your financial goals.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Phew, you guys keeping up? You got it? You good? Okay. Yeah, it's election season, but look, Tuesday's the last day to vote. If you're like me and you don't want to risk lines, sadly, there's probably not any risk of that, but you never know. Maybe some folks will get inspired. You can go vote right now. You can vote today. Actually, all weekend long, the early voting is taking place now through Monday. The late voting, the last day to vote is Tuesday. And so let's get it done. You should have your mail-in ballot. If you've lost it, you can just go to any vote center and ask for a provisional ballot. It's not ideal, but you can do that. So try to find your ballot. But if you can't find it, just go ahead and ask for a provisional ballot. If you haven't registered to vote yet, or you've never registered to vote, or you're scared that you can't vote because you have done time. In California, you can vote if you've done time, as long as you're out of court supervision and you are no longer in jail. You automatically get your right to vote restored. You don't have to do anything except register. Well, all of y'all can register on the same day that you vote. You've never voted before. Maybe you just turned 18. Maybe, you recently were incarcerated, but now you're out from under that. Or perhaps you just were lazy and you haven't got around to voting, or you were protesting, whatever the reason. You can actually register in California on the same day. Roll up to the voting center. Any voting center, doesn't have to be your precinct. You can go vote in Beverly Hills if it makes you happy. Go vote in Watts if it feels good. You can do that. Just go there. They have everything you need. You can register and vote on the same day, or you can register today and go back and vote tomorrow if it makes you feel good. Feel like standing in a line twice. The point is to get it done on or before Tuesday, because that's when it's all over. And I know people are not feeling this election, and I'm not sure why. I think part of it has to do with the national political scene. Get inspired. I don't know if Mitch McConnell stepping down gets you inspired, use that to get you inspired. If thinking about a new district attorney gets you inspired, or the current district attorney, which by the way is the one I'll be voting for, George Gascon, then do that. Find a reason. Maybe it's Measure HLA. I think the commercials for that are very deceptive, try to scare you. But really, it's about making the streets safer and having fewer people killed in traffic accidents, which is now the leading cause of death for children in LA. Help me, Lord. That, for me, makes HLA a definite yes. Figure it out. Go to KBLA1580.com. Listen to the conversations. Compare Maxine Waters' slate with Knock LA's slate, with California or the LA County Democratic Party slate. They all have recommendations. Go to the Republican one. Compare and contrast, and trust me, it all becomes clear. We'll be talking with Katie Porter next. She is running to be the U.S. Senator from California. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for sharing a part of your Thursday with us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest. New York State Police are investigating after an envelope containing white powder was sent to the office of African-American Attorney General Letitia James. No one was injured after her office received the envelope, which has been sent to a lab to be tested. An envelope with white powder was also sent to the judge who oversaw Donald Trump's civil fraud case. An upcoming launch could light up the Florida sky if the weather cooperates. 3 NASA astronauts at a Russian launch just after midnight Friday. The Crew 8 mission calls for